My buddy called me about a year ago. His wife had been scheduled for a spinal procedure. Nothing experimental, nothing unusual. The kind of thing orthopedic surgeons do 3 times a week. They'd been paying into their health plan for 11 years without missing a single premium, and 3 days before the surgery date, the insurance company denied it. Not medically necessary, the letter said. I want to talk about that phrase today, because I've spent a lot of time reading about how this actually works. And what I found is not a story about bureaucratic inefficiency or overworked adjusters making honest mistakes. It's a story about a system that was deliberately designed to say no first. Let me start with a number. Roughly 18% of all insurance claims submitted through marketplace plans get denied. That's not a fringe statistic, that's from the Kaiser Family Foundation, pulling data from insurers' own public filings. Nearly 1 in 5 claims denied. Now, here's the part that should make you pause. Of the people who actually appeal those denials, who go through the process, submit the paperwork, push back, more than 40% win. More than 40% of appeals result in the insurer reversing their own decision. Think about what that means. It means a significant portion of those original denials were wrong, or at minimum, reversible. The insurer said no. A person pushed back, and the insurer said, fine, yes. So why deny it in the first place? Because most people don't appeal. That is the entire business logic. And I want to be very clear that this is not speculation. There is a term used inside the insurance industry. It's called the denial to appeal ratio, and it is a tracked metric. Insurers know with significant precision what percentage of their customers will accept a denial and walk away versus fight it. The overwhelming majority walk away. Some because they don't know they have the right to appeal. Some because the appeal process is deliberately complicated. The forms are long, the deadlines are short, the required documentation is specific in ways that aren't clearly explained. Some because they're already dealing with being sick or caring for someone who is sick, and they simply don't have the bandwidth to fight a corporation with an entire legal department. My friend Dave, different guy, different situation, got a denial letter for a cardiology follow-up 2 years ago. The letter was 4 pages long. 3.5 of those pages were legal language about the appeals process. The actual reason for the denial was 1 sentence buried on page 3. He told me he read it twice and still didn't fully understand what they were asking him to do. He gave up. He paid out of pocket. That is not an accident. That letter was written that way on purpose. Now let me explain the mechanism, because this is where it gets very specific, and I think it's important to understand exactly how the machine works. Most large insurance companies use what are called automated adjudication systems, software. When a claim comes in, it doesn't go to a human being first. It goes through an algorithm. That algorithm checks the claim against a set of criteria: diagnosis codes, procedure codes, whether the provider is in network, whether a prior authorization was obtained, whether the treatment aligns with what the algorithm has been told is medically necessary for that diagnosis. If anything flags, the claim gets denied. Automatically, without a human reviewing it. Now, these criteria, the medical necessity guidelines, are written by the insurance companies themselves. They are not written by doctors. They are not written by medical boards. They are internal documents, and in most states they are not required to be made public. You cannot look up the exact criteria your insurer uses to decide whether your procedure qualifies. You are simply told whether it does or doesn't. And when the algorithm says it doesn't, you get a letter. I want to talk about the prior authorization process, specifically because I think it is the clearest example of what I'm describing. Prior authorization means that before you receive certain treatments, your doctor has to get approval from your insurance company in advance. On paper, this sounds reasonable. Insurers say it's to prevent unnecessary procedures and control costs. In practice, here is what happens. Your doctor determines you need a treatment. Your doctor submits a prior auth request. The insurance company, using those same internal criteria we just talked about, reviews the request, often through the same automated system, and denies it. Your doctor then has to appeal. This is called a peer-to-peer review, where your doctor gets on a phone call with a doctor employed by the insurance company to argue that yes, this treatment is medically necessary. That insurance company doctor, by the way, often has no specialization in the relevant medical field. Your oncologist arguing with a general practitioner employed by an insurer about whether your chemotherapy protocol is appropriate. Meanwhile, you are waiting. The American Medical Association did a survey a few years back. 94% of physicians said prior authorization had delayed necessary care for their patients. 33% said it had led to a serious adverse event, meaning the patient's condition got significantly worse while they were waiting for approval. The system creates medical harm, and it is completely legal. Here's something I learned when I went through this with my own wife a few years back, and I want to share this because it genuinely changed how I deal with these situations now. Every insurance company operating in the United States is required by law to tell you, in writing, exactly why your claim was denied, not a vague summary. The specific clinical reason, the specific guideline they used, and the specific information they would need to reverse the decision. Most denial letters don't actually give you this. They give you a code and a general statement, which is, technically, a violation of their own obligations under the Affordable Care Act. Which means if you call and ask for the full clinical denial reason in writing, specifically use those words, they have to provide it. And once you have that document, you know exactly what the appeal needs to say. I walked my friend through this last year, his wife's spinal surgery. We called, requested the full clinical denial rationale, got the document, identified the specific guideline they were using, had his wife's surgeon write a one-page letter directly addressing that specific guideline with her specific imaging and diagnostic history, and submitted the internal appeal. Reversed in 11 days, 11 years of premiums. A 3-day pre-surgery denial, 11 days to fix it once we knew exactly what we were doing. I also want to mention something that most people have no idea exists. It's called an external independent review. If your insurance company denies your internal appeal, meaning you appeal, they review it themselves and still say no, you have the right in every state to request an external review. This means an independent organization, completely separate from your insurer, reviews your case and makes a binding decision. Your insurance company cannot override it. This process is free. You don't need a lawyer. You fill out a form. The external review upheld the patient's claim, meaning overturned the insurer's denial in the majority of cases reviewed in the most recent federal data I've seen. Most people don't know this option exists, which is, again, not an accident. So here is what I want you to take from this. The denial is not the end. The denial is the opening move in a process that the insurance company is counting on you to not participate in. The entire business model of claims denial depends on a specific assumption that you will read the letter, feel overwhelmed, and stop there. When you don't stop, when you call and request the full clinical rationale, when you have your doctor write a specific letter addressing the specific guideline, when you file the internal appeal, and if necessary the external review, the math changes completely. You are no longer the average policyholder who accepts the first answer. And the system was not built to handle people who know how it works. My buddy's wife had her surgery. She's doing well. He told me afterward that he wished someone had explained this to him years ago, that he'd probably accepted denials before without knowing he could fight them. That's why I'm here. I'll see you in the next one.